All right, welcome back to the channel. It's Perry here, and we're just going to start with a front-on view of the Bommie. And so if you've been sticking around here with me for a while, the channel dates way back, even though the content is rather limited. I go way back into a couple of my early videos of a Blastomusa spawn, and then we got into my old 120. And if you've been following along enough, then you would seen my 90-gallon transition into this tank that you're looking at, which is the Innovative Marine Cube Lagoon, which has the EXT overflow. Quite nice, plumb through the wall. And at one point I did have a prop tank added in, and now there is really no reason to go into the reef room because it's now just a hobby room. And so let me get into a little explanation as to why. Number one, the system just doesn't warrant having extra tanks plumbed in right now. Although the idea sounds great, to have all the space I want to further the addiction of the hobby, at some point we have to look at energy costs, we have to look at temperature, overall, on living by myself. Did I really need another room when I already have a room where this tank is, to hang out and watch the TV if I choose to do that, or entertain? So having a sort of hobby reef room where I could get away from the rest of the family really isn't warranted, because I'd only be getting away from myself. So with all of that in mind, I explained in an earlier video about staying in the lane, letting the folks out there that are doing acro sales sort of do acro sales. And while it sounds great to take something that you enjoy with a hobby and possibly make some extra spending dough, at the end of the day, I think there's another Reef channel, Reef Beef, that talks about, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I just don't see having all of these acros. And while it's great to have a wide variety of different corals, I had to finally just whittle it down to what am I mainly interested in keeping. So that is what birthed the idea of the Bommie, the smooth Bommie, if you will, where the emphasis would be on less, sort of just building out this nice little center island type of Bommie, with a lot of smooth corals wrapped around the base of it, and some tenuous in the higher parts, as well as maybe a few of the tabling acros. So overall, the main theme would be for the smooth type corals. However, giving leadway for some other types. There are some millies in there, and a few other different types of coral. So while I'm not keeping the collection I had before, this collection is more than enough coral, and I will probably still begin to scale back, mainly on smooth corals where I've found redundancy. And that sort of thing happens, unfortunately, in the hobby. We will come across corals that have been renamed, and unfortunately it's just a part of the hobby, and I'll leave it right there. So we are in our about our third month now of the transition. I've been able to sort of whittle out all of the nasties. So as time is moving along, I believe I'm making a dent in the nitrates. Again, I removed the prop tank, and by doing so I lessened my overall water volume from that 200-ish range down to the 140, 50-ish range, with the lagoon being about 112 and about 30 more gallons in the sump. So roughly 140 ish, 5. A decent water volume, but the skimmer can keep up with this volume more. I also lowered the return pump, and I kind of wanted to slow that down so the skimmer could match the water pass-through rate. That's another thing that we want to keep in mind when we're trying to determine what our turnover should be. I've always tried to keep whatever my inbound gallon per hour rating is on that protein skimmer pump to be roughly that of the return, give or take 100 gallons here or there. So with that in mind, I did turn the return pump down because I'm not feeding a prop tank. I'm only feeding this display that you see here. So a lot less water volume. The skimmer can now keep up. And the only other changes other than just the scaling and descaling and removal of corals that don't fit the Bommie moving forward, using the probiotic bacteria from Aquaforest, their carbon source, still using the ESV for the main minerals and magnesium and potassium. If need be, right now I'm not using a whole lot of trace dosing, just mainly because I'm doing some water changes every other week, and my ESV dosing is a lot lower since I've reduced the corals. The demand of the smoothies really on alkalinity and all those minerals is a lot less because the growth rate is so much less. So with that in mind, I'm not dosing a lot of the 3-part. I think I'm only down to around 25 or 30 mLs of alk and calcium a day for 150 gallons. That's relatively light, but I'm holding a really good alkalinity value at 7.7 DKH. Magnesium is 1350, 1340, and somewhere around 410 on the calcium last check. I haven't tested nitrates and phosphates. Again, last test I was in the 30s for nitrates, and phosphates 0.18, 0.2 something. A little high, but nothing that's got me, too alarmed. With me, I'm not looking for this process to be anything but a long, slow, patient approach. So as you look into the Bommie, you'll see bubble algae. My belief is that when the system finally matches with the protein skimmer and the whole system really dialed in, I believe eventually some of those things will go away on their own. The sand is beautiful, and I have plenty of critters. I'm really emphasizing having plenty of sand sifters as well as pickers. So I'm a big fan of Mexican red-leg hermit crabs. I've got about 50 of them in there. So yeah, it's important to always refresh that cleanup crew regardless of whatever approach you're taking to help, especially with the sand bed. Bare bottom, we can get into a different dynamic, but again, I'm trying to create here is a system that will at one point sort of run itself. I don't envision probiotic bacteria and carbon source being a long-term thing, at least not with any type of regular use, maybe periodic use. But right now, until I start to see the system get more and more mature, the corals look better and more healthy. There are some tremendously colorful corals in here looking really nice. However, there are some that could look better and are questionable. And so with that in mind, it's always a game of improvement, staying diligent to your game plan, your water changes. There's really no shortcut to success. Some have asked about colors with me before, and there's all kinds of different ways we can go about this. But I am a true, firm believer in the in-out relationship. So a heavy input, a heavy output. So a very big protein skimmer and a lot of food going into a nice fish population. So with that it being said, I also have always been a strong believer in frozen fish food. I have never used pellets or flake ever, and that dates me nearly 20 years being in the hobby. It's always been frozen. I mix it up between rods and Larry's, mysis. Really just, I look at the fish and the system like I would look at anything. You know, would you, you know, your dogs too, right? Like if you have dogs, do you want to always get them the same dog food, the same brand, the same flavor every single time? They don't want that. So, you know, these animals too, they don't want to eat mysis every day or pellets every day, processed food, if you will. So, you know, we spend a great deal of money on many different things in the hobby. For me, particularly, I don't mind investing a little bit of my money into the quality foods. That keeps me from having to buy all these other coral foods. I do not dose any coral foods at all at this point. I don't believe it's necessary. As long as I have a good bacterial population, as long as the fish are getting fed very well. If you look at my fish, they are fed well because they are fatties. That's it. Heavy in, heavy out. Feed the fish really well. They'll be vibrant and colorful, and that too will transfer over to your inverts, including your coral and everything else in the system. So that's really it. There's no secret. Patience, time. Yeah, that's it. The microbiome, of course, is very, very important. I'll get more into that at some point. But right now, that's a quick little update. Thanks for joining me along. We'll close out with just a quick wrap around the Bommie. A little bit long of an update today. Sorry about that. But I appreciate all you guys that that follow along. It's super cool of you. All the comments and likes and love is truly what inspires me to want to continue onward with updates and everything else on this channel. So thanks again. Much love to the reefing community, specifically you acro heads.